Good afternoon. Welcome to My Money Workshops, Taking the Stress Out of Managing Your Money. Today's event is one of a series, and you are invited to join the remaining series. You can find them listed on our website. And without further ado, I will introduce my co-host, Dan Zhang. Dan, are you out there?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Dan Xiang, co-host here. I work in private equity investing and excited to chat about money today.
So today we're hopefully going to speak to you in a meaningful way about how to manage your debt. Before we get there, a brief disclaimer. Dan, if you'll advance the slides, please. So our mission, My Money Workshop, is a nonprofit organization that educates people to manage their finances wisely and to make a lifetime of informed decisions. My Money Workshop Incorporated instructors and guest speakers are volunteers. Please note, we provide the following information for educational purposes only during the live webinars, and it is not intended to be and should not be considered advice with respect to your personal finances. Please note also that this seminar is being recorded and will be available for review online. Dan? So today is another of My Money Workshop's general public seminar series, this one about credit and debt management, a very important topic to us in our modern economy. So as you can see, your financial wellness plan contains a lot of building blocks. Talks about banking and saving, how to manage your credit score, your credit report, goal setting, very important, budgeting, how to save and prepare for retirement, and today's lecture right in the middle, credit and debt management. So we've already covered budgeting, goal setting, and banking and saving. And here we go with credit and debt management. So a brief recap. It is important for you to have some kind of banking account. Having a bank account and indeed a relationship with a local branch or an online bank will help you build a foundation for financial wellness. Clearly, a bank account is a means to help you save and allow you, in some cases, to understand where your finances are. So if your employer or other organization that you're affiliated with offers direct deposit, that is to say, if they're willing to send your net pay or your payment directly into your bank account, we urge you to do that. We urge you to be very careful when you are using a debit card. Do not overdraft the account to which the debit card is linked. We further urge you to start savings, even in small amounts, today rather than tomorrow, or sooner rather than later. And a key to your stability is to build an emergency fund of some 3 to 6 months living expenses, even if you start with just a few dollars a week. Build that emergency fund, and hopefully you will get through the so-called rainy day. So be aware, be informed, and be wise. I'd like to enter into a poll, and I'd like to ask how many people have credit cards, and do you have a debt? For those of you who are watching this video on YouTube, please, of course, answer these questions for yourself. Dan, next slide, please. So, debt management. How do you even get started? Well, we're about to tell you what we hope are useful hints, tips, tools, and suggestions for doing just that. Hopefully, after today, you'll get these skills. You'll get tips to help you stay on top of your credit card debt. You'll learn the limits of how debt collectors and their companies can interact with you, and learn ways to manage your overall debt. So for anybody who has ever had the bad luck to fall behind on our credit card debt, this course will hopefully help you in managing that debt. And managing that debt is essential because credit card interest rates are in almost every single case, probably in the overwhelming majority of cases, very, very high. They're certainly very high in relation to the money you could get if you deposit it yourself in a bank. We've seen credit card debts that run up to 20% and more. Bank account today, you're lucky to get 0.5%. So a credit card is, it could be seen in many ways as a temptation. And it's easy to walk into a store and instead of paying cash, to offer this little piece of plastic, which seems kind of innocuous, and use it to pay for a bill. But I want to give you an extreme story, and hopefully you'll understand that I might not really mean this story literally, but it could happen to me, or it could happen to you. And that is the $73 cup of coffee. What, you say? How did I get a $73 cup of coffee? Well, you go into Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or your local coffee shop, wherever you choose, and you plunk down your credit card for that $2 cup of coffee. A month later, your bill comes, you put it in your pile of bills to pay, and guess what? You forget to pay it. Okay, credit card companies are all right with that. They charge you 4 cents of interest on the $2, and they slap you with a $35 late fee. So 1 month later, having neglected to pay the bill, the $2 cup of coffee now costs you over $37. Bill comes the next month. Well, the interest charges on the $37 from the previous month are now $62. And if you fail to pay this bill, you get another $35 late fee. And by the way, late fees may rise, who knows? So your $2 cup of coffee has now cost you $73, assuming that you now pay the $73 to the credit card company in due time to avoid a third bill. Moral of the story, pay on time and in full. Miss 2 payments, not only are you paying double late fees, not only are you paying interest, but you risk the fact that these rates, the interest rates and the late fees, could be increased by the bank that you owe the money to and that has issued the credit card. I'd like to pause here for a brief moment, and I'd like to welcome those people who are attending our seminar live. I hope you find it enjoyable and interesting. So each month, your credit card is accompanied by a bill. You should receive this bill either online or in the mail. And the bill looks something like this. And this is a Chase credit card bill. And if you notice in the upper left here, or in the upper right of this page, the person owes $1,258.56. The bank is asking for a minimum payment of $25. If you don't make the $25 payment, the bank is going to slap on a $37 late fee plus interest. If you only pay the minimum amount, it will take you 7 years to pay off this bill, and you would pay a total of over $2,000 in the 7 years. to pay off the $1,258 balance. You'll pay about $750 in interest charges to the bank. If you pay $44 a month, which is about twice the minimum, you'll pay the balance off in 3 years. You'll only have paid the bank about $1,584. Still, you would have paid over $300 in interest. And that's assuming that you took the credit card at this point and put it away. Clearly, if you made more purchases, your balance wouldn't shrink. But if you kept making purchases at this rate and paying a small amount, you would probably reach your maximum credit, and you would have a long, tough road to dig out from under the interest charges the bank imposes. Dan, can I have the next slide, please? So again, here's the information blown up. If you didn't see it on the previous slide, the message here being, don't forget to read the fine print on the front and the back of your statement. One of the things that is not here is the actual interest rate. And if I look on my credit card bill, my interest rate is 13.99%, or more than 1% a month. So if this was my credit card, I would probably pay interest at the rate of about $14 a month on this balance. And I would have only, if I made the $25 payment, I would have only paid down my debt by $11. So at the end of the next cycle, assuming I made no charges, having paid the bank $25, I would still owe them $1,247. Kind of startling when you think about it in those terms. Dan, can I have the next slide, please? So at the bottom of this page, there is a hot link. Clearly, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll have to type this in for a website called bankrate.com, bankrate.com. And if you use the navigation calculators, managing debt, minimum payment calculator, you'll come to this page. So here's an $8,000 card balance and a card with a 17% interest. That's nearly $120 a month, or 1.5% of the 8,000 as interest. If you use the method of paying the interest plus 1% of the balance, 1% of the balance is $80. The interest, I said, was approximately 120. 120 plus 80 is 200. The minimum payment is actually $193.33. So you're paying a great deal more interest than you are in reducing your debt. If you use this method, it would take you quite a long time to pay down this debt. If you now said, wait a minute, I'm not going to do the minimum payment, I'm actually going to make a fixed monthly payment, and I'm going to pay the $8,000 down at $600 a month. $600 a month, right? You can now say that it will take you 15 months to get rid of this debt, and you would have paid $929 or $930 in interest. If you stuck with this, which is generally what the bank requires, and only paid the $193, it would take you 318 months to be rid of your debt. And over that time period, you would have paid more in interest than you owed to begin with. So a word to the wise here is to use the credit card only for things that you can pay for when the bill shows up. Getting caught in a cycle of paying minimum payments against the amount you owe is a road to paying the bank a bonanza in interest charges. So try not to give the bank that opportunity. You have better uses for the money than the bank does. Can I have the next slide, please? So when you get a credit card, you should be aware of the interest rate and the penalties. And you should know that from the moment you apply for the card. If you get a bill that you can't pay, trying to figure out the interest rate and the penalties is too late. You're stuck. Watch out for interest rates when you're shopping for a credit card. Watch out for the late fees. And remember, interest is a windfall for the bank. It is many, many times the interest that you could possibly get on your own money when you save it. In fact, if you looked at saving today, as I think I said earlier, you would be hard pressed to find a savings rate that's even 1%. And it would be very easy to find a credit card interest rate of 18% or more. If you think that your financial discipline is not where it should be, then get a credit card with a low credit limit so you can't get yourself in trouble. And don't be shy. If the bank issues you a card with a $10,000 credit limit and you think that perhaps this is too tempting for you and you can wind up in trouble, call the bank, tell them to cut your credit limit. There's nothing wrong with that. It's good management. Sometimes you see very attractive credit card offers, zero down balance transfers, and things of that nature. These things are usually accompanied by fees. So one credit card might tempt you to transfer the balance from your existing card to their new card. Well, not always a good idea. Sometimes the banks charge 3 or 4% of the balance you transfer to make the transfer happen. So if you get 3 or 6 months of no interest payment, you may eat that up with fees, or the fees might even be higher. And sometimes no interest payments mean the payment is deferred. That is to say, the interest still builds, you just don't have to make a payment. A further trap to raise your balance and keep you paying interest. And from the bank's point of view, the best customer is a customer that doesn't pay their bill. Pardon me. There's probably no reason for anybody to sign up for a card that has an annual fee. In fact, if you shop carefully, you can probably find cards that have no fees and might even give you a reward. For instance, if you take certain kinds of cards from Fidelity, and I'm not advertising them, Fidelity has a card that gives you back 1% of what you charge on the card. So if you charge $200 in a month, they actually give you a $2 credit. So avoid cards that have annual fees. Keep a credit limit on your card that you can manage. Try to find cards with low interest rates. If you cannot pay the bill in full in any one month, at least you can pay minimal interest. Take advantage of rewards, but don't spend money just to get the reward. get the reward for things that you need. And your goal should be to pay the bill in full the day before it's due each and every month. Meaning, sometimes you can see a bill due on the 15th and your payment may not reach the bank or institution to get it posted on the 15th, and you wind up being saddled with a late payment. So I think it's a good habit to make sure that your payment reaches the payer, reaches the credit card company a day before it's due. Good safety net feature for you. Remember, what the credit card company is loaning you money for 30 days, and they're not doing it because they like you. They're doing it so that you can build a bill balance and wind up paying interest. You have a higher risk of overusing the card and being unable to pay the bill at the end of each month if you have an unreasonable credit limit. So your credit limit, as I've said before, should be reasonable, meaning you can hopefully pay it off each month. If you do pay interest, keep track of the charges. Interest will compound, meaning you can be charged interest on the interest from last month, and you'll end up paying more for the item in the long run by a long shot than if you had paid cash in the beginning. If you see your balance is starting to run up, take your credit card, put it in a little plastic bag, and put it away. Don't use it. The easiest way to keep your balance in check is not to use the card for new purchases while paying down the balance on the purchases you've already made. If you've already exceeded your budget for the month, try not to rely on your credit card to carry you through, but rather you've hopefully accumulated an emergency fund for situations just like this. Take a few dollars out of the bank to carry you over. Don't charge it. If you want to build credit early and you're new with using credit cards, make one, maybe two purchases a month and then go back to putting the card away. When the bill comes, pay it. Charge small things. Charge a cup of coffee. Charge a railroad fare. Something that you know, no problem, I can pay this off. Building credit is in good part paying your bills and paying your bills on time. And speaking of paying your bills on time, pay your bills on time. This will help you not incur late fees and will hopefully keep any interest charges as low as they could possibly be. So if you'd like some tips for managing your debt, we've got some for you, as you'll see in the ensuing slides. And this is a pretty good picture. That eraser should help you periodically start to erase your debt. And your eraser is paying your bills on time and paying more than the minimum due. Dan, can I have the next slide? So think about this, if you will. How much money do I owe? And after you've thought about it, and maybe you want to write it down, and so you can look at it and think about it, do I have any kind of plan to get me out of debt, to make me debt-free? And when I think about debt, I really think about debt of all kinds. For instance, my rent is a debt. I owe it to somebody. Clearly, if I have a mortgage on my home, that's an evident debt, meaning I have probably tens of thousands of dollars that I owe on this property. In many of our cases, on this house. Some of us have student loans, and some of us may have several student loans. Many people have credit card bills that they have not paid from the previous month, as well as new bills that they've run up during the month. Unfortunately, in this age of COVID, far too many people have medical bills, and medical bills can be huge if you've been in the hospital, as anyone who's been in the hospital surely knows. Everything above that I've mentioned is considered debt, and how you handle your debt, both how much you have and how you pay it off, can impact your credit rating. And if you want to apply for more credit or buy a car and sometimes get a job, your credit rating can be very important. So it's pretty easy for debt to derail your financial wellness plan. Derail, when the train goes off the tracks, it's no longer headed for the station. And your station should be debt-free and financial independence. So getting out of debt as quickly as possible will ensure that you can meet these goals. And again, the goals are getting out of debt and being financially independent. So the first thing you should do is understand the type of debt you have, the total amount you owe, and any interest charges on the debt. Why are interest charges important? Well, if I had a 24% credit card and an 8% student loan obligation, and I couldn't pay either one of them in full, I would probably try to get rid of the 24% credit card debt while making minimum payments on the student loan debt. What I mean here is that you should attack your debts on the basis of higher interest rates. The higher the interest rate, the more aggressive you want to be about getting rid of that debt. So as I previously said, write down all your outstanding monthly expenses, the due dates, and the interest rates. You should also understand why you're in debt. Some debt is perhaps unavoidable. You needed a car to get to work, so you leased a car. And yes, those lease payments are a debt. But did I lease a car that fits my financial circumstance? Or did I lease a status car that's really draining my resources? These are real questions that all of us have to face at one time or another. Am I overspending? Do I need to have cable TV and subscribe to 14 other online stations and all kinds of movies on demand and so forth? Or can I limit or maybe even eliminate those kinds of expenses in order to get myself out of debt? So the first step in getting out of debt is coming to terms with your own debts and your own expenses and trying to put them into a place that you're both comfortable with and that you can manage towards your goals. So a plan to work down your debt. You know, some people will tell you that borrowing is bad, but borrowing isn't necessarily bad. Many of us couldn't find the thousands and thousands of dollars to pay for an education. We had to borrow the money. Same thing is true for a house. Most people take a mortgage Some people take mortgages and home equity lines to buy a house. And with the price of cars exceeding $25,000, $28,000 today, buying a car for a single payment is often out of reach. So many of us have car payments or lease payments. Paying these obligations on time and in the amount that's due, if that's a minimum payment, so be it, is a good way to help you establish credit. And establishing good credit, as I said before, is essential to your credit rating, which in turn allows you to maintain and get more credit. However, too much debt can overwhelm your budget. If you're stuck with high interest rate loans, high interest rate credit cards, you might be paying more interest than you are in terms of dollars that actually go to pay down your debt. If you don't stay current on your payments, you will destroy your credit and increase your debt. And your chances of future borrowing will go down dramatically. Next slide, please. So there are various types of credit and various types of loan. Many common loans are called installment. And an installment loan usually means that there is a defined or a known payment of a fixed amount for a definitive amount of time. For instance, I have a car lease. It costs me $269 a month, and I'm going to pay it till May of 2022, at which time the lease is over and I need to find another car. So car loans, whether you lease or buy, are a very common type of installment loan. Same thing with a mortgage. A mortgage is usually something that's paid on a monthly basis, although it could be paid on a different basis, usually at a fixed amount and for a known period of time. Student loans also operate by and large like that. And sometimes you make a major purchase under an installment credit or an installment loan. The second major type of credit that you might get is so-called revolving credit. And a credit card is revolving. It means you can make some purchases in May. You can make a minimum or a complete payment against that bill. And you can start making more purchases in June. And you can keep making purchases up until you hit your revolving credit limit. So you may make different amounts each month in terms of how much you pay. You don't need to request an additional loan every time you make a purchase. You have an implied loan amount, commonly called your credit limit, which you can use anytime you want, as long as the credit card remains in good standing. Knowing the difference between revolving credit and an installment loan can possibly help you reduce your debt faster. Generally, because installment loans are made, in most cases, against collateral, meaning when you buy a car and you use a loan, the car becomes the collateral. If you don't pay the loan, the company repossesses the car. If you have a mortgage and you can't make the payments, you might be in foreclosure. If you have a credit card, there really isn't any collateral except for your good name and reputation. So generally, revolving credit is more risky for the bank than an installment credit arrangement, and therefore, to compensate the bank for the increased risk, they charge a higher rate. Knowing the difference can, in some cases, help you pay less interest and get out of debt quicker. While it might be very tempting to use a high credit limit credit card to buy a car, I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend an installment loan. That's just an extreme example. So if I'm in debt, how do I get out of debt? Well, the first thing is you should let your budget be your guide. If your budget was proper and it works for you, use it. Make sure you understand all the fine print of your debt. Check your agreement, as periodically, credit card companies especially are known to change their terms even after they've issued the credit card to you. Stay on top of your payments. Make yourself some kind of a reminder system, whatever works for you, that will let you know when it's time to pay, and make those payments on time at the very least to minimize interest and avoid late fees. And if your debt becomes overwhelming to you, try to get some professional help. Don't do it alone. Debt-free is the goal. If you're not careful, interest and late fees can compound your debt to great heights. So there's nothing wrong to calling the company that you owe money to and change your due dates if that helps you. In other words, a due date 4 or 5 days after you get your paycheck might be easier for you to handle because you have your net pay in your hand and you can make a payment before that money gets spent in other places. If you're really struggling to make payments, you can call the lender and you can ask if they are willing to alter the payment terms and make a new payment agreement. That's hard to do, but sometimes it works, especially if the lender knows that you have a history of making payments in a timely way, and therefore you've created a bond of trust with the lender. But if you do make a new payment plan, my advice is keep at it. Don't make a new payment plan and then violate it. Banks don't like that. Next slide, please. From time to time, and very unfortunately, we let debts go, and we are confronted with debt collectors. In recent years, there has been federal and state regulation which govern how debt collectors can interact with you and still be in compliance with the law. So if you get a call from a debt collector, the first thing I would try to do is politely tell the debt collector that you will not talk to them and call the bank or the credit card company and see if you yourself can negotiate a payment plan. Don't feel bad about that. You can simply tell the first call of the debt collector, I'm going to call my lender and do not wish to speak with you at that time. Second, debt collectors can only contact you at 8 a.m., 8 in the morning or later, and at 9 p.m. or earlier. They cannot call you after 9 or before 8. They cannot call you at work. They cannot call you at unusual times. If a debt collector knows that an attorney is representing you about the debt collector must generally stop contacting you and must contact the attorney instead. If you want to get additional resources about how to deal with debt collectors, you can go to consumerfinance, that's one word, .gov, for more tips and resources to help you. And here you can see the complete web address. Again, www.consumerfinance.gov. And then there are 3 submenus. You can negotiate that or navigate that on the site. Or you will find these slides on My Money Workshop's website, and you can take it from there. We've given you a worksheet, which I'll show you in a moment, and we're asking that you try and follow these steps. As I said before, which of your debts have the highest interest rates? You should try to pay those first, then move to the next one with the next smaller interest rate. You can also do this in reverse, paying off the smallest loans, but I would advise, in the interest of conserving your own dollars, pay the highest interest rates first. If your credit card debt becomes overwhelming, you can try to transfer your debt to a new card with a lower rate. But as I said before, be careful with so-called balance transfers. They usually have fees involved, even if the promised interest rate is lower. And please pay attention to due dates on both cards. If you really get overwhelmed, seek help from a not-for-profit credit counseling site. You can find these sites online, and you should be careful not to use a counseling site or a counseling organization that is for profit. Many of these will just compound your problems. Use a not-for-profit credit counseling company. And I would also advise you, if you can, to join us in September for our discussion of managing your credit report, interpreting your credit report, and how to improve your credit report. Next slide, please. So here's the worksheet that I mentioned before. Starting from the left column, when you get each bill, you would write down Visa, how much you owe them, what the rate is, what the minimum payment is, and how much you actually paid. This will allow you to keep a reference and a record to how your debts either shrunk or ballooned. And hopefully they shrunk. But keeping this bill by bill record will help you build a history of how you're managing your debt. A word about student loans. The Federal Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, which is commonly called CARES, suspends payments on student loans, that's federal student loans, held by the U.S. Department of Education for 6 months until the end of this September. But with regard for your student loans, most of them allow you to sign up for auto pay. That pulls the payment directly from your bank account, and you'll never miss a payment. Also, if you sign up for auto pay, and this may be the case with your mortgage, your home mortgage too, if you have one, the loan servicer may discount the interest rate on the loan for as long as you remain in the auto pay program. Always make more than the minimum payment if you're able to. Try never not to pay less than the minimum. It's a bad idea if you can avoid it. If your loans are deferred, be smart. Put the monthly payment in your savings account so that you can put the money you save by not paying the loan during the deferral period towards the principal of the debt or the amount you owe when the deferral period is over. Make sure to deduct the student loan interest on your taxes if you're eligible to itemize. And if you have multiple loans that you find you cannot pay, you might be able to refinance your student loans. Check with your lender. For more information, visit the following website, dfs.ny.gov/consumer/student protection, or use the phone number below it, the 800 number. Assistance for paying bills. The so-called one-shot deal emergency assistance program helps people who can't meet an expense during an unexpected situation or event. So you can usually get some help if you become homeless, if you're evicted or dispossessed, if your utility is threatening to disconnect your services, if you or your family have been a victim of a fire in your home, if you've been a victim of domestic violence, or if there are circumstances, severe circumstances that affect the health or the safety of any individual or family. And you can learn more about these emergency assistance programs at a06/nyc.nyc.gov/accesshra/. So again, you'll find this on our website if you didn't get a chance to copy it now. There's also a New York State emergency rental assistance program called ERAP. And this program is designed to help people to pay their rent and utilities if they've been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. So at least one person in your household has to meet some standards and criteria. Could be that they qualify for unemployment, or they've received some reduction in their income, maybe their hours have been slashed, incurred significant costs, or experienced a financial hardship due to COVID-19, like perhaps your employer closed. If you can demonstrate a risk of becoming homeless, or if you have housing instability, and you have a household income at or below 80% of the area median income. ERAP is not guaranteed, and the state determines eligibility on a case-by-case basis. There is an application, and if you need help completing it, call 844-New York 1, RENT, R-E-N-T, and you can also visit the website NYS, short for New York State, renthelp.otda.newyork.gov, etc. Next slide, please. So we hope that you take certain key elements away from today's presentation. Managing your debt really comes down to managing your budget. You need to make your payments consistently. It may take you time to pay down your debt, but seeing your debt decrease should be an incentive, knowing that you're going to reach your goals faster, the faster you get out of debt. Getting out of debt requires personal discipline. And part of personal discipline is to keep your wants in check. That is to say, do I need to buy this, or can I use the money to pay down my debt instead? What will really make me feel better in the long run? Next slide, please. I now would open the floor to any participants who wish to ask questions. Okay, good. Next slide, please. Additional support. You can certainly find additional support on our worksite. Oh, I'm sorry, on our website. And that website is mymoneyworkshop.org/participant resources. You'll find pre-recorded videos, one-on-ones, and invitations to free events. And if you want to follow us, we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. If you know a school or a nonprofit who may benefit from this and similar programs, we have a lot of them, please let us know. We'd love to connect with your recommendations. And you can ask people to visit us and they'll find more information. Next slide, please. The next installment of this series will be on August 24th, also at noon. On behalf of Dan and myself, we'd like to thank you for attending. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for your attention. We invite your questions and so forth to be directed to us via our website. And we wish you a good day and good success in managing your debt and your financial affairs. Thank you. Dan, next slide. I think we're done.